Welcome to the Dad Hammer Podcast, a casual Warhammer show where we discuss all things 40k, Age of Sigmar, and literally everything else Warhammer related. So whether you are a beginner or a seasoned veteran, we are so glad that you have joined us on your Warhammer journey. I am your host, David the Warboss, and I am joined by the Chaplain, Chaplain Lee. How we doing, man?
Doing good. Was on vacation last Wednesday, so that's when we went out, and then just spent time on the beach. Dodged a few sharks that were in the water, so that was always fun. I was in the sea floating around with my kids, and then it was like shark. Like they're not as dramatic as that. It was the lifeguard coming down the beach, blowing the whistle, saying "Get out the water."
You
But
should
I
just
also,
left it. You should just left the story at that. Like it
oh
sounded
yeah,
much more dramatic. Have you like picking up your kids in each arm and then running
running.
off,
I mean,
saving them?
I went back to the 80s and relived every Jaws
Jaws.
moment.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
But yeah, they were out there. The sharks were out there. They were patrolling the beach. At one point, I saw a shark, and what was happening is the shark was following fish, and then it would jump up and it would get a mouthful of fish. But if they were lucky, they'd grab a seagull as well. And I saw a shark like jump up, grab fish, grab seagull. I was like, man, that's like
Wow, that's cool. Yeah,
you got a bonus bite. Like
yeah, you did.
so but yeah, vacation was good. Got some good hobby time at night when the kids were in bed as well. So I got some painting done. So yeah, it was good, but I'm happy to be back, ready to jump
Yeah.
in, talk about all things Warhammer. And yeah, so it's good to be
So
here.
yeah, so like I guess maybe some pro tips for all of the parents listening to our show. Use your vacation time when you go on vacation. Take your Warhammer stuff with you. Don't leave it at home. Try to don't plan on playing any games, I guess, unless
Yeah,
you have
unless you got
figured out how to do that. Without how to get in trouble. Like that's how you
mm,
get in trouble with your significant other.
the
is
best.
leaving to go to a game store while you're on vacation. It's not great.
The best thing was we were trying to pack everything in, and I was like, my wife was like, "Do you think we're getting everything in?" I was like, "I don't know, it's going to be tight." And she's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Just painting stuff." And she's like, "Oh, so we're not going to take food, but we'll take your painting stuff." I was like,
Nah.
You can eat paint."
I mean,
So,
technically, but you could also like. There's always a grocery store
yeah,
around, right? And you can always get food. You can't always get Warhammer paints,
that's it. So, but
depending on where you go.
I kind of
Yeah.
just did the Jenga of trying to put it in, and eventually got it
Mhm.
in, and we were all good. So, so yeah,
Yeah, I did the same thing. I brought like a big Tupperware bin, and I'd put. Usually, what I end up doing is I bring multiple boxes of sprues and all of my tools, and I bring the paints, and I bring stuff that I'm in the middle of painting, and I bring so much, and I
Mm.
end up barely even touching the stuff that needs to be assembled. But it's like one of those things where you bring too many types of clothes with you on vacation because you just never know. That's kind of what I do with Warhammer. So I'm bringing like a giant box because you just never know what could happen. But yeah, so I mean, when I went on vacation, I did the same thing. It was nice, and I got quite a bit done. I wasn't as forward as you are as getting all of your stuff done. So we'll get into that into our pile of potential here in a minute. But Lee, glad to have you back on the show after a little bit of a hiatus. So good stuff there. We have a great show for you. We've got several pretty good news bits. The news was for a while was a little slow. We had to fill in some other things, but now we've got some good news stuff to discuss. We're going to be talking the Blood Angels Codex that was recently announced along with the army set that comes along with it, and a couple of new models that we want to. Both of them are chaplains, which is right on brand for our panel today. And then we are going to move over to something very orky, which is a new game that's being released on Steam called Speed Freekz. If you have been in the beta and played like I have, it's kind of like a Rocket League racer, but with orcs and guns, and you blow everything up. Other than that, it's just like Rocket League. But it's going to come out pretty soon, so we'll talk a few bits on that. And then we want to skip over to there's a brand new announcement, sort of related. Legions Imperialis. None of us on our team are Legions Imperialis players. I've never purchased anything Legions Imperialis, and for those that are not aware, that's kind of super duper miniature version of the Warhammer miniatures game. Um, but something we want to talk about, which is modular boards. They mentioned in an article about building a modular terrain board for Legions Imperialis, and wanted to discuss what would that look like for Age of Sigmar and 40k if it were a thing. And then finally, we will discuss the Imperial Agents Crusade Rules, that those were just released. More importantly, though, like very, very complex rules, lots of narrative stuff, and just wanted to talk through whether or not anybody actually plays these. I've got my own opinions on that. But all good stuff. However, before we get started on any of the news and all of those wonderful little Warhammer bits, we're going to start with our pile of potential to get an update on where things are. Did we make progress? Are we lagging behind? And Lee, usually you are the one that makes us all look terrible with all of your progress that you've made. But we'll start with you. How is the pile of potential coming along, and what progress have you made?
Okay, so it's actually gone down because I
Oh.
actually got rid of a whole army that was in box. So I think it was 2 weeks ago. Will jumped on the team and was
Mm-hmm.
on the podcast. Well, he's a Sylvaneth player, so I looked at the Sylvaneth and I was like, am I going to play these guys? Like I had a couple of boxes of things I'd picked up along the way, so I text Will and was like, "Hey, do you want these?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So I literally gave the Sylvaneth stuff over to him. I sold them to him. I'm not that generous, but um, and then I was like, man, like what, like I know what I want to do. So I've talked about it on the show so many times, but Gloom Spike Gits are they're just they just sound so fun. And the idea of like little goblins hiding out in a cave, eating hallucinogenic mushrooms, and then coming out of the caves ready to rock and roll just sounds funny. So I ended up getting rid of the Sylvaneth, and then I went over and bought the Gloom Spike. It's Spearhead, added that, and then I picked up the Fire and Jade gaming pack as well. So I've got a little bit of terrain. So I picked those
Nice.
two things up. So that's where the pile of potential went up. And then it went down because I painted I finished the Seraphon on the Carnosaur. So I got that finished, and then I finished 10 Saurus warriors. So that's the spearhead completed. And then I got about 90% done on the Saurus, like the old warriors. They were old sculpt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got about 75% done on the Raptidon charges, which I had from an old box. So I had a really productive time. Just kind of, yeah, just kept the ball rolling. And then tonight I just finished a piece from Reaper Minis. So Blackthorn had this really cool competition idea where it was, hey, come in, buy a mini, and then paint it, and then we'll have a paint competition. So everyone has the same mini. So everyone's on an equal playing field in regard to the sculpt, and they have like a junior category, and then they have an adult category. So I said to my 11-year-old, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So there was the initial kind of like buy the mini, build the mini, start painting the mini, and then it kind of lulled. And then I reminded her today, and myself I was like, "Uh-oh, competition has to be in tomorrow."
Yeah.
So we both sat down a couple of hours ago and did some painting. So I haven't got a picture of my daughters because we're still working on that. Hopefully I'll bring that next time just so you can see it. But this is what I've come up with. So yeah, so the mini is on top. Built the base out and then just made some mushrooms. I thought I'd practice the psychedelic mushrooms. So that's 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 where it's at. And it just came together, like, so that started from that dark purple foundation and then just
Mm-hmm.
built it up through the layers. But it was fun. My wife came over and she was like, "That is the cutest thing you have ever painted." And she's like, "That's so much cuter than the Warhammer models." And I was like, "It's not cute.
Oh.
It's a dragon." And she's like, "It's still cute."
I mean,
But
it's a cute little dragon. It's not a menacing dragon. It's like a little baby dragon.
yeah, so but yeah, we'll see if it wins anything or if it places anywhere. But
And it wins the heart of your wife. That's what it
that's
won.
it.
Yeah.
And my
So
daughter, yeah,
for our sorry, I was just going to describe for our listeners. This is it's like a little baby red dragon sitting on top of some rocks with a bunch of as you described psychedelic mushrooms around it. So I'm trying to picture what the actual narrative, what the story is around. It's like you just maybe the dragon knew where your gloomspite gets were hanging out and decided to settle in a cave where these mushrooms are, waiting for them to pounce around so you can gobble them up. There's your story to go
yeah.
along with it. That's free of charge, Lee.
Ori loves a good psychedelic mushroom rave with goblins. I just wanted to hang out with them.
Might
So
as well. Yeah, that sounds
that's it.
good.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's called a Sneaky Rocky. I think that's the name of the model. But it was fun, yeah. So we'll see. I'll keep you informed on whether it's a winner or not. I don't know. I've only ever painted once for a Games Workshop competition. Like it was
yeah,
the Goth Rocker, and
yeah, yeah.
I don't think I even got an honorable mention. It was like you tried.
Well,
I didn't get a
that's
participation
okay.
trophy. That's what that
Oh,
I didn't get a
that's
sticker.
fine. I think well, I mean, but I remember when you did that and it was just like the first few months when you had just started
Yeah.
painting. And I mean, like I think I was talking to one of my buddies about he had just started to paint one of our friends of the show. His name's Todd, and he is a painter starting to paint his Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. And he was showing me what his first painted model, and he was really nervous to get started, and there was so much to learn. And then he's finding out the prices of the paints, that oh my goodness, I got to buy all these paints. And then you go watch these YouTube videos where they have these paint masterpieces for all these different shades and the wet blending, and it's just he got really overwhelmed. And so he ended up buying a cheaper kit online just to get started. But
Mm,
it looked great. He ended up painting a wizard character for the D&D game that we're playing. And I mean, everybody remembers their very first model that they painted. And I mean, he was very proud of it, as he should be. It looked really good.
yeah.
And I said, what you're going to start learning is little nuanced things about shades and shadows, and how to start with the base layer and then use inks or contrast paints. But what you don't want to do is go out and buy like 40 paints, and then you have no idea why you bought certain colors because you
Mm,
don't know what you're doing at the beginning. So, um, but the whole point of that is just the before and after, Lee, your first mini, your first paint entry versus this thing right here with all the different shades and the detail on the eyes. And I mean, it's just your practice and confidence will grow over time. So I think it looks great. I'm excited to see maybe some other entries as well, to
yeah.
see what those look like. But you're number one in my book, Lee. We'll say that.
Until
Well,
you roll a 6 and wipe them off the board, and then you're like,
That's
yeah.
true. That's true. And then it's nothing to me anymore. Well, it looks good. Keep us posted, and congratulations on your pilot potential progress. I mean, that's just insane, the amount of things that you painted. I have made progress.
Wow.
Just I don't I don't make as much progress. I've got them in front of me. They're not done. I'm still working on them. I'll throw them up on the camera here. I'm still working on these. Are just base coated. I don't have any highlights, but these are the Praetors for the Stormcast Eternals. I've got three of them that are base coated, and then I've got some Vigilors that I'm working on. These have got some highlights on them. We're getting there slowly but surely, and still got to put flock and gravel and all that kind of stuff on the base. But
Mhm.
um, so making some progress on the Stormcast. They are unfortunately not part of the Spearhead box, which I need to get going. I have assembled. I don't even know what this model is called, but I'm getting close on this particular model. This is the one with the wings. It's got the wings, the
Oh,
Stormcast mini. I haven't even put it together. It's the one with the wings on that are on the steps.
Mm.
It shows you how much I know. I'm really bad at the names. I'm bad at remembering names in general, but I'm really bad at remembering the names and the lore of all these armies. I can't keep it straight. It's not something that I focus on, um, and I feel like, man, I sometimes it's like imposter syndrome. I'm on this podcast. I'm supposed to be the war boss, and I can barely remember the names or what everybody's supposed to be doing in these armies. But it is what it is. I'm old. What are you gonna do?
I think
But
it's
I've
just
got I've got the spearhead box. I've got the little chariot guy that I am assembling. One thing I did, and I'm interested just to hear maybe your experience with the Gloomspite Gets, with the spearhead box, because when I put together the spearhead box or the first few models for the Stormcast, most of it was push fit. Like
mm,
I had to use very little glue, and I
mm,
don't know if that's the case for other stuff. I mean, I'm excited to get into my Skaventide box to see if that's more or less push fit. But I mean, I still had to remove the mold lines and
mm,
all of that. But really, they fit really snugly. I didn't have to use a lot of glue at all. Maybe
mm,
on a out of 20 assembly joints, I had to probably do it on 2.
mm.
So I don't know. You haven't. I guess you haven't even opened your Gloomspite Gets, but okay.
No, I'm
Well,
doing the don't open anything until I get through the backlog. So once I get through the Seraphon, then that is the reward. But if I'm building models, I hate that push fit system. So
why?
I just snip it off because I sometimes find like they don't push together tight enough. So you always
Mm.
end up with a gap, and then you have to like try and fill it or something like that. So I'll just try and just snip that off and then glue them together as if they were standard kind of back in the day minis.
So I was gonna show, like, I don't use green stuff, and I'll try to zoom in on this, but this is one of my Praetors. I don't know if it'll zoom in correctly or not, but I had a gap right here and you can kind of see it where the cape is,
Yeah.
and there was a pretty significant gap, and I don't have any green stuff. I just put some super glue over the top. Like, I just kinda glued it over, and then once it dries, I filed it down just a little bit and then painted over the top, and, maybe I just had bad eyesight, but you look at it, I mean, you can obviously see there's a seam,
Mm,
but it's not a large gap anymore,
mm,
so maybe that's, again, heresy. That's the, it's Sigmar, so maybe it's not, but, I mean, that's what I I just I don't have the time for all of that, and to me,
mm,
my going back to my thing about I really don't remember the lore and the names and all this backstory of why my Stormcast model is up on stairs with wings. I have no idea. I just want to know what the abilities are, so when I get them on the table, that I can use them to win. It's all about the strategy and the game for me,
mm.
but I mean, that's everybody's got their thing for Warhammer, and some folks don't even want to do that. They just want to paint the models and put them on a shelf or read the
Yeah.
books. And I guess why it's Warhammer is such a unique thing because it's so multifaceted, which is cool. But anyway, that's my pile of potential update. I'm surrounded by sprue, and I need to make some progress because we've got some games coming up of Spearhead that I'm looking forward to, and I've really got to get some stuff done, or I will be heavily proxying lots of models on Spearhead. Like, oh, those Vigilors are not. They're not really Vigilors this time. And I don't even remember the name of the guy. See, I got to do this. I'm so uneducated about my own Stormcast army that I have. So I've got to
You'll
read the books and get going.
you'll pick it up fast. I mean, my spearhead Seraphon army are done. They're ready to go. So at least I've got one, spearhead army ready to roll.
That's good. That's
So
good.
looking forward to playing them because
Yeah.
I've never played them. So, but I think they'll be
Yeah.
fun. Dinosaurs on dinosaurs. It feels right.
Yeah, and I think that you will really enjoy Age of Sigmar. I think it'll be just like playing any other game system, but this one's a little weirder because we play so much 40K, and then when you get in, we talked about this on the last show where the charge rules are so different, and
Mm,
you don't have to declare everything. You can just charge in, and you're just there. And
mm,
then if 4 different units are around you, and you didn't say that you were going to charge them, it's okay. Just go swing away, and it's much more flexible and fun, in my opinion. But again, even though we've said it multiple times, if you are only a 40K player, I highly recommend that you get a Spearhead box and try a game of Age of Sigmar. It is fun, I promise. And it is a bit of a palate cleanser because it doesn't require you to do, 5 levels of calculus just to figure out whether or not you hit somebody. So
Yeah.
it's pretty nice in that regard. But anyway, still love my 40K. And with that, let's get into our first topic, which is 40K. And this one is Blood Angels. So I'm going to put this up on the screen. We'll go full screen here. They announced the brand new codex for the Blood Angels chapter of the Space Marines. And I'm not a Blood Angels player. I know, Lee, you aren't a Blood Angels player either. But I do like the Angels of Death TV show, which is nice. And so I do have a little bit of background. Again, I just talked about how terrible I am about remembering all this stuff. But when I first saw this, my first reaction was going to be, meh, Blood Angels. I don't play Blood Angels. Moving on. But I got to say, the presentation of the box, the paint scheme, they're not going for the traditional all red Blood Angels in this particular paint scheme. I do kind of like the black and the red. It's mainly black and a little bit of red contrast in there. Um, you know, I'll get into some of the contents of the box. First of all, the box art gives me Angels of Death vibe from the Warhammer Plus show. Which, if you are on the fence about being a Warhammer Plus subscriber, we talked about this before. I still think it's a cool thing to have. My interest is waning a little bit because they haven't released a lot of content. They're supposed to be coming out with they did a teaser trailer for something called, was it called Tithes or something? There's a new show coming to Warhammer Plus. But the Angels of Death show is absolutely worth it. Really, really good. And the box art from this one looks like the whole black and white scheme from the Angels of Death. So I like the box art, and I want to get into the codex here. This is, of course, the collector's edition. Lee, I don't know about you, but I'm getting kind of either Conan the Barbarian or maybe the Star Wars, the movie poster from this
No,
collector's edition with
it
the
looks
guy in
like
the middle. You know
He-Man.
what I'm talking about?
Looks like
He-Man.
He-Man. For the power of Grayskull.
I mean, what'd you think of this? This is a collector's edition, of course, so it's going to come in the army set, but I'm sure it'll be available for, separate purchase. I mean,
Yeah.
is it, you like this? Does it look cool?
Yeah, I think it looks cool. I think if you go back to the original, like the first image that you had, when I saw that at first at a glance, I was like, "Oh, it's a Raven Guard army," just because of the black and white. But then
Yeah.
I noticed that it was the Blood Angel logo on the side, and I think they've done really well from the point of view. It's just the box art. I think, like you said, the black and the white and then that red just gives it enough visual interest to make it pop. And then if you go back to the codex, I just think that artwork on there is just stellar. It just really it draws you in because you can see just enough of it to kind of make out what it is, but as you get closer
Mm-hmm.
you kind of see all those details. So I think they've really knocked it out the park. Not so much, obviously the sculpts are great, but the artwork itself. So it would make me want to open it up and have a look, what the inside is like.
Yeah,
I
the
think it
only
looks,
thing I don't necessarily like is they put the Blood Angels logo right in the middle of the
oh,
artwork.
I like that.
I mean, I don't. I wish they would have put it in the top right or maybe in the bottom, or done it when, because the logo is right over the top of the main, the main guy in the middle. Like, why not move it
Mm.
down a little bit? I don't know. I'm nitpicking, of course, but still, I
But
just, put it off to the side. But still a good looking codex cover, especially this collector's edition. But it comes in the army box set, so if you're going to buy this full squad, you got that. And then, of course, here is the normal. If you buy it separate,
mm,
most people, I would think, would be buying the codex separate because they most likely already got the Blood Angels army. However, going back to the pictures of the original here, it looks like the box set comes with quite a few pretty cool models. But these are all just like they've done in past releases with other armies. These are the same models that you can already buy, maybe some alternative sculpts, but the main focus is going to be, and I'll put these up on the screen here, these two new models. Both of them are chaplains. The one on the left, which is in some, cool chaplain-y power armor with a skull face and all that kind of good stuff. This is, I'm going to butcher the name, Chaplain Lamartes. Lamartes?
Sounds
Sounds about
good.
right. The Guardian of the Lost. And this guy looks pretty cool. I like that
Mm.
they didn't do tactical rock either. They put him on some steps, which
Yeah.
it's different, right? I mean, they haven't done that with other models. I'm trying to think of the last time they did something like that. Have you seen other models with that?
No, I mean, with a jetpack, most of them have got a tactical rock or something like that, whereas the other chaplains are kind of 2 feet on the ground. So I think obviously he's got a jetpack on his back, but I do like the idea of that he's landed as opposed to his hovering by his tippy toes on a tactical rock. So
Is it
like the other
you're saying
like the other
saying
guy.
yeah, saying tippy toes with a chaplain and an angel of death just doesn't really, set the tone very much. Um, but I do like he looks a little squatty though. He doesn't look very tall.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the pictures.
I don't
Um,
think he's in Terminator armor, is he? I
no,
think no. Mm,
no, just the normal armor. But it's a cool looking model. Now the guy on the right, again, I'm not a big Blood Angels player. I'm a little confused.
mm,
He This is Astarath, High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, and maybe I just don't know enough about these guys, but it's kind of weird to see them with wings. And I'm going to read what it says here. I mean, this guy, first of all, for our listeners, if you haven't seen him already, it's a gold and red paint scheme um, and the model's got this really cool looking axe, almost look at Age of Sigmar vibe going on with some wings. I mean, like, angel's wings or
mm.
the vulture wings or however you want to say it. But I'm going to read here. It says, as the Redeemer of the Lost, it is his grim duty to grant the Emperor's peace to those battle brothers who have fallen too far and for whom an honorable death in battle is no longer possible. He joins Lamartes in the new army set to dispense exactly this kind of mercy. So it says it retains his classic pose, meaning this came from a previous model that's already been there, leaping through the air with the help of an ornate winged jump pack. So my assumption, the reason I wanted to read that, my assumption is that the wings serve no purpose whatsoever. Like it's just that he's got a jump pack, and
Mm.
so like he's going up into the air via jump pack, and the wings are just there for looks. Is that the way that sounds to you?
Or maybe it's so he can glide down and then dispatch. Does it?
Maybe.
Yeah. Does it? Does he go out and then kill the Marines that are injured? Like, is he like a mercy type thing? Because that's what it sounded like. It sounded like he would dispatch his friends.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. When they're injured, he goes out and puts them out of their misery because the name of the axe that he's wielding is called the Executioner's Axe. So, it sounds like he is a little bit of an angel of death. Maybe that's what they're going for. That would
But
make sense.
how would that work in a game mechanic? Like, oh, hey, I tell you what, that guy over there, he's got one wound. I tell you what, I'm gonna send my guy over and kill him. So, like, it doesn't
for
like
for the Emperor.
it just seems like it seems like a nice story, but game mechanic wise, I'm not sending a guy out to kill my own troops, especially when they've got like one
Yeah.
one wound. So I'm
Uh,
not sure how that works.
the only thing I could think of is maybe if you've got if he's near or leading a unit of troops that are killed in battle, and he's there with them. Maybe then he can like heal other models or something, or he can grant some kind of bonuses as a result. That would be the only thing is that a lot of times they'll have game mechanics where you narratively you take somebody out or you do something that will grant an inspiration buff to the rest of your army. So if he's leading a unit of dudes and 3 of them are slain, then and he's with them, then every time a model is slain, you get +1, or I don't know, something like that to show that they are inspired by his mercy, I
Is
guess.
it almost like a William Wallace, like, we will take
Yeah,
them on,
exactly.
like
Exactly. I mean, I think it's a cool looking model. I'm just a little confused. So he is on the tactical rock, which is yeah. They've done this recently. They've gotten a little too overzealous, I think, with the tactical rock. Or as we saw on the last model, the last box set from last week, they had a tactical beam with the eagle on it, which looked a
yeah.
little weird. But overall, I think these are it's a cool looking codex. I am interested to see more, especially excited for Blood Angels players, and it's always cool to get new miniatures. And these are refreshes from previous ones, which is really cool. I did see that on the upcoming. That's get me a little excited. There is a new white dwarf coming out, and it's on the cover has Leagues of Votan. It's getting into the backstory and lore of the Votan. So I'm hoping that maybe that's a precursor to the Votan Codex announcement.
Oh,
I don't want to get my hopes up too high. I have seen some people talking about hoping for some kind of dreadnought um, variant with. I would love it if, or they could even do. I hate to just continue to turn stuff into Votan conversation, but I would love for them to have some kind of like dreadnought with 3 Votan guys in there.
oh,
like,
okay.
almost like manning like a spaceship, with one's
Yeah.
in the cockpit, one's on the wing or something. I think that'd be really cool. Anyway,
You never know.
you
So
never know.
would a Votan dreadnought be the size of a Terminator?
No, we already have Terminators with they're just a little shorter than
That's
everybody else. It's fine.
so
We'll
like
see.
the AdMech robot, would it be that size?
Yeah, probably. That
You
would
see.
probably be something. Yeah. That's all right. That's okay. Just continue to make fun. We will dispense judgment with multiple judgment tokens.
Maybe that little backpack could carry the tokens in. You can just pull them out of the back of the dreadnought and put them down.
Yeah, and just have a nice way to transport those around, and then you can just dump them out like those little. My grandmother used to have these little things that were like made out of yarn, and when you like a little thing's mouth, and then you open it up, and it would have a Werther's original in it. It's like one of those. I got one of those, and I put a bunch of judgment tokens in it. It's a good
It
idea. I should
it could
get somebody to knit one.
like one of the McDonald's toys that you fire and it fires out a little plastic disc. Like you
Yeah,
could,
like a Pez
yeah,
dispenser.
yeah, you could have that for judgment tokens. You just open it up and it would fire it, and so
This
yeah,
is why we're not on the design team. This is why we're not
this is
key talent with Games Workshop.
this is gold, design gold here.
Okay, yeah. Let's move on before we give them too many of our secrets away. So we're gonna move on now to the on something a little orky. This is the announcement of the new-ish. It's been out in beta for a while. The Speed Freekz game. They are getting in an early access, which is coming August the 6th, depending on when you listen to this. It may already be out, but the they did an early or a beta. I played the beta. Speed Freekz, for those that aren't aware, it's available on Steam. Warhammer 40k Orcs Racer. So it is almost like a Twisted Metal. If you've ever played those games, or I used to play Vigilante. That was another one. But I would describe it similar to like a Rocket League handling for the cars, but with all of the various orc buggies and trucks and battle wagons and boomdaka snazwagon and all that kind of stuff. So you can pick from all those cars. That has a really cool soundtrack. They say lots of orky things while you're driving around. Um, I've got some screenshots here that show from what the game's going to look like, and I mean, graphics look good. It was a fun game to play. It got a little stale when I was playing the beta because it was just either uh, King of the Hill, capture the flag, or just a death match. But half the time I was just running around trying to, shoot people with the Boomdacus Nazwagon I had, because that was just fun to say over and over again. But I mean, it looked like a fun game. Now, the one screenshot I want to show here is that there is a mode in that they showed off in the trailer that has Stompa in it, and I was a little confused, but I guess it's Orc Clan versus Orc Clan because you're going up against the Stompa and trying to take it out. So, I mean, overall, it looked fun. My question, Lee, for you, and there's another one with the I'm sorry, it just looks so dumb. Like I can't get over how even in a video game, the Stompa looks like a grandma out there with the giant gun and everything. It doesn't look terrifying at all. Um, my question to you, Lee, is I know that you're not a huge PC gamer, but what what if anything? I mean, we talked about different video games, and I've mentioned that I would love more of a tabletop simulation of Warhammer. I mean, at this point, what are you looking for if they were to really pique your interest in the PC gaming or console gaming world for Warhammer?
I think for me, what I used to like playing like Command and Conquer back in the day. So anything that's like a strategy game where you're having to build something along the way. So I think something like that would be fun. Again, I don't have a PC, so I've not been able to play Total War. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been
Mm-hmm.
able to play that. I think that's a game that I would like. And then a long time ago, I had an Xbox, and there was a game where you started off as a kid, and then you kind of grew. As he grew up, he became a warrior, but it was more like open play, RPG
Fable.
type.
Fable.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I like the idea of that game. So something where you can see a character develop would be good. But yeah, I tell you what, my favorite classic game. It's got nothing to do with Warhammer, but I think you could do it. Was Gauntlet.
Yeah.
So just that, when you'd go into a room and then you'd have ghosts appear or something like that. So yeah, but I'm not a big gamer, so I've not really delved into the kind of Warhammer game. But I think a Total War kind of tactical game would be something. But racers, shooters, I'm not,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm not as super excited, even though it's orcs, and I love myself some orc vehicles and rocket truck squig buggies and
Mm,
all that stuff. It's fun. The beta was fun for about half an hour, and then I was kind of done with it. But I'm
mm.
also not. I mean, I played Rocket League for a little while. That was good, but it's not something that I would play constantly. So it's very likely that we are just not the target demographic for this game. But I did want to mention it because it is coming out and it's orcs related. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'm glad that they're continuing to release video games for Warhammer, all different types. Some of them are strategy, some are first person. They got the Space Marine 2 game that has, of course, leaked online, but the Space Marine 2 is a third person action game. They've got strategy games. They have Age of Sigmar. They do 40K. There's all kinds of stuff available in the universe of Warhammer, which is cool. I did one because you did the sidebar. We don't do too many sidebars here, but I thought you mentioning Gauntlet, and I've got an arcade cabinet behind me. That's one of my other hobbies is building arcade cabinets. So this is one I built about. I'll lean to the side here. This is one I built about 20 years ago, still running. But funny story about Gauntlet. If you're not aware, there's a Gauntlet 1 and 2 that came out in the 80s. And then, of course, they released the Gauntlet Legends, which are the 3D games, which were fairly popular. But I bring it up because the original Gauntlet, when back in the early 2000s, when the ROMs and emulators were like a huge deal, I got it on my PC and I set it out. I'm like, all right, I'm going to beat Gauntlet. I never had enough money to beat Gauntlet as a kid in the 80s. I'm going to complete this game because you could use save states. So you get to a certain point, you hit save, then you come back later and you load. And I got to level, I want to say 170 something. And I remember getting to, I think, level 140, and I'm like, I was hoping for a dragon, or some big thing, a kill screen or something at the end to show that no, So I got all the way up to, I thought, all right, I'm going to stop at level 175 because I can't do this anymore. It's the same thing over and over again. So then I went on the internet and I looked it up. There is no ending to Gauntlet.
No
It just
way.
loops forever and ever, and I just wasted my time. So for any of you out there that are thinking, because I played Gauntlet Legends, which has an ending, and
Mm.
it has bosses and everything, and you can complete Gauntlet Legends. And so I guess I took that and went into, I'm going to beat Gauntlet because I could never do it as a little kid, and yeah, it has no ending. So spoiler, if you're looking to complete Gauntlet, the original one from the 80s, don't, because it doesn't end. Anyway, all right. So there's a little sidebar. Back to Warhammer. Let's move on here. We got a couple more topics to hit, and we've got one that I'm going to hit the Legions Imperialis. Now, we don't play Legions Imperialis. If you have not looked at it, I've got a screenshot here of the terrain board, and they put up an article on the Warhammer community site where they're discussing and kind of showing off the Legions Imperialis terrain modular board that I believe is at Warhammer World. I think that's where they're showing it off. Usually they have some kind of crazy display. I've never been to Warhammer World. Would love to go one day, but this looked really cool. I've never played this game. I don't really have a lot of interest to play it, frankly. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is that they mentioned that these are modular boards. So you can buy these little terrain kits, but I guess because the game is so small, it is on a much smaller miniature scale, that you can make these squares and then piece them all together. The reason I wanted to bring it up just for a brief discussion, Lee, is this something let's say for the moment that they offered these kinds of modular options for 40K or Age of Sigmar, because we're always rolling out these big battle mats, we're putting terrain everywhere, in tournaments they're forever having to have some kind of specific arrangement of buildings and terrain to make it offset. I
Mm.
mean, what would, and I've actually seen some other companies, a lot of YouTube companies, I guess you want to call them a company now, guys are getting together with their stuff, and then they're releasing these little pop-up books. It's like you open up a couple of pieces of cardboard and then the pop-up terrain, and then you just close it back down and you take it with you. That's become a little popular. It's not as sturdy, obviously, as the plastic kits, but that whole notion is that you buy a lot of those and then you piece them all together like squares for modular terrain. So my question is, I mean, what do you think, if anything, they could sell something like this for the larger 40K and Age of Sigmar game that would resonate with players, or would that even be feasible? Would that be something you'd be interested in if they released it?
I think it's definitely something they could do, and I think it's something that potentially I would be interested in. Like we've talked about it here, I built terrain, but terrain building, they look amazing and they look immersive, but they take up so much storage space, and transporting them back and forth is difficult as well because it's easy to
Yeah.
break bits off or damage them. So I think
Hmm.
anything like that. I think tabletop Titans, I think it is on
Yeah.
YouTube. They have their own kind of tabletop terrain, and they use that kind of fold up stuff, and it looks good. I just personally prefer the plastic, because it feels like you can.
Hmm.
It just feels a little bit more immersive. Instead of kind of walking around them, you can actually get into the structures and stand on top, put the models on top. I'm not sure how well they hold up, but if it's for like would I be interested? Potentially, depending on the quality of it and how it holds up to the game. But everyone within our playing circle is so close. It doesn't take a lot to transport what we currently have to games and stuff. But if I was going away further afield, maybe a pop up terrain would work and would help. On that, or you just use your whatever you've got around you, and you move your minis around a can of soup. Like you know, whatever's handy.
Yeah, I liked I think it's a cool idea to have modular terrain. I've seen some demos of the the more I guess it's cardstock or whatever type of material, the plastic material. I don't want to call it plastic because it's the one where you can unfold the book and the terrain pops up. And I've seen some demonstrations where you can actually put models on there, and it looks halfway decent. Um, so I don't think that would be too big of an issue. But that's probably the best way to do it. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're buying. To your point, I mean, I've got bits of terrain on top of a wood board or something and it's cut out. So it's basically modular in a sense, but it doesn't piece together like a puzzle, because I've still got a battle mat that I have to roll out and put all those things everywhere. So, I mean, I just think that I wonder why they're choosing to do it with Legions Imperialis. Like, why specifically? Is it just because this is not one of their mainline games and they're saying, well, hey, let's try something. Let's try something different to see if people will actually buy into this. But if that's the case, then they're doing it on one of their least popular games. Is that an indication of whether or not it's going to be popular if people buy? I don't know, but I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, it may be the fact that there is no terrain for it. Like, if you think about it, like terrain from 40k, if you want, you can throw it into Sigma because the model like sizes is equivalent. But I wonder if there is no terrain. Like, this was like, oh, we don't have buildings, so this is our easy fix is to produce this. Or they looked on the internet and saw that some person had created it themselves, and then they were like, oh, we better do this, otherwise we're cutting down, on our profit margin. But I think that's it. I think going back to our kind of modular train, there is plastic modular train out there. I think Snot Goblin Gaming has a system that he brought out. So I tried to grab a copy of it for us, but didn't. And I'm not sure if it was still a Kickstarter or not. But Games Workshop can do it. They did it with boarding actions. They can build modular terrain for 40k. They just choose to do these bigger sculpts. And obviously, boarding actions has had a bit of a reprise with a new book and new, so it is possible for them to do it. I think they're just choosing not to and just
Decided
keep
not to.
yeah. But back to your thing, I just wonder if they basically looked at the Imperialis and went, we don't have any terrain for this, we better make some. And they decided to go down the modular because the whole idea of it is small, it's easy to transport, and you can play big games, so it feels like a designer went, hey, we need terrain, let's do it. And that's where the idea came from.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned boarding actions. I wouldn't. I guess it's all modular to some degree. I think what makes this even more modular is that the buildings are built into the bases themselves, and those are just squares. So all you're doing is assembling a bunch of squares. Where with boarding actions, it is modular, but you're still having to roll out a game mat of some kind, whether it's the cardboard or something that's rolled out. But you're taking those individual walls and putting them on top, whereas this I think is buildings built into a square, and then you're fitting all of these squares on a table, and then you can rotate them and all of that. So I guess that's what and when I build my terrain, I don't build it on perfect squares. It's more of a irregular shape, and I put the buildings on there, and I think that looks cool when it's on a big board. So would they do this for 40k or Sigmar? I don't know if it makes sense. It might actually make sense for the tournament scene, and then you'd have much more consistency without having to worry about, all right, was this piece of terrain placed in this certain way? But we don't play on the competitive side as much. We're more casual competitive. But I think it's an interesting concept, and I always like to see when they're doing something different with their games. So we'll see if that ever comes to the larger games that we play. All right, we got one final topic here, and they announced recently some Crusade rules for. They just talked about the Imperial Agents. That's a brand new codex coming out. Pretty excited about that. They just released a preview of the Crusade rules, and I want to put these up here. I mean, it looks like a bunch of gibberish, which it kind of is to me, but I believe that's the point. So they had some screenshots, and I remember reading the article where it said, hey, buckle up, we're getting ready to drop a whole lot of numbers on you, but just stay with us. Like it was something to that effect in the article. Which if you have to preface your announcement with that, I don't know if I don't think that's a good sign. But I tried to play Crusade in ninth edition with Steve, and I tried to do it, and actually tried a couple of times with tried it with friend of the show Lawson. I tried to play Crusade with him. And for those that are not aware, what you end up doing is you have some sheets of paper where you start out with a very small amount of units, maybe like 3 or 4 units, and you have a certain number of points that you're allowed to take. Um, and then from there, you have basic war gear. You don't get to choose any of the higher levels of war gear, so it's just essentially what you're equipped with, no more, no less. And it's not super powerful, but you play a couple of games, and then depending on what happens, whether or not you lose units, you win the game, you lose the game, you get these points, and then you can spend those points. If I remember correctly, in ninth edition, you got to spend those points on buying either they give you like a budget so that you could purchase additional units to put into your army so you could swap them out, or you could buy war gear or give your guys buffs. And it's almost like a role playing game element to it.
Mm.
So, really cool idea in theory. In practice, though, it ended up being just extra paperwork. Like we were forever having to add points here, do this there, and for us fellow olds, like it's very difficult to find time to do all the management in between games, which just became a bit of a chore. So now what they've done, and I've seen this with Crusade and some of these other armies that they've been releasing, they're giving them their own little flair or spin on Crusade. So they're trying to make it very specific. I remember seeing it with Votan, they've done it with Orcs, where it's very specific Crusade enhancements, almost like a little game within a game. And so now what I've got here on the screen is all this stuff for the Imperial agents with about threat level and doing influence and intrigue, and you get all these points to spend on top of that. And then I've got this other image that I'll pop up on the screen here that is like a chart where you get to roll on to determine whether or not there is like if you're like your influence within the different spheres with this. I mean, okay, I just I just wanted to put this up here, but the main question I wanted to ask, like, is there a need for this? I mean, it's very clear that there's an incredible amount of time somebody at Games Workshop is assigned to be Crusade expert. Like that's their job. Like, hey, Sue, John, Bill, you're on the Crusade team. Go make awesome content. And I'm sure this content's great. I have no doubt. Lots of backstory and all kinds of cool rules and mechanics with it. But man, to me, Lee, I don't know. Is this something that if they did it specifically for your army of choice, fill in the blank? You talk about Seraphon. If they did some big complex thing where you had to build up certain squads and you had to get even more paperwork to do it, is that something that would intrigue you if you loved the army a whole lot?
No, no. I think for me, Warhammer is playing the board game, with one another, and at the end of the night going, it's done. Game over. Like, great, you lost. I lost. But it's I just don't know. I mean, if I wanted to do something like that, which was like narrative, I'd say, hey, let's go play D&D or let's go play Wrath and
Mm-hmm.
Glory. I think it's just a little bit maybe too complex, especially when the games are pretty complex as well. Now, I'm sure there are people out there that love this, and if we've got listeners that love it, like write in or comment below, let us know, because what is it? What is it you like about it? Because I've never played it. I've not,
Mm.
and also it's time. Maybe there are people out there that have got the time on their hands, but with work, family, kids, and then trying to get rid of my pile of potential, I don't have time to work out whether Sergeant Joe gun is now leveled up and whether he's got the new body armor for an attack on, you know, a Tyranid hive. I just don't have the time, so it wouldn't really interest me. I'm kind of happy in the kind of bubbles that I am, which is 40k and Sigma.
What would it like? I'm trying to think what it would take. They'd have to build it into the app. That might actually be something that would be of interest to me if they had a kind of like they have with the command bunker where you can hit that
Mm,
button and it does all that stuff for you. If the app would walk me through the whole process and would do all the calculations for me and ask me questions, in
mm,
between. So if they said, okay, what army do you want to play? And I would pick orcs and say, okay, well, what clan do you want? I want this clan. And then what, um, how many units are you going to, here it is. And then it would ask me questions after the battle's over. Okay, did you win? How many units did you lose? And you could make those selections and then it would spit out the result. Okay, roll here, and it would randomize it.
mm.
I still don't know if I would actually go through all of that,
Yeah.
but if they had a way of taking Crusade and kind of making it fit in almost like a Crusade light,
Mm,
because I think one of the things that I really like about, like, we never really played secondaries a whole lot back in the day in 8th edition and 9th edition. It wasn't until they released that Leviathan deck, or right at the end of 9th when they came out with the mission deck, where you draw the 3 cards and have them in front of you. That was a way for me to remind myself to play the secondaries, and it was just easier. So if they did something like that where it was more of a card thing right in front of me and I didn't have to write a bunch of stuff down, I think that might get me to do it.
mm.
But if it was included in the app, would that even, that's still more work. Would that interest you at all? You'd be like, I don't know, let's just play the regular 40k game and
I
move
think
on.
I think I just the regular 40k game. I was just trying to get what would get me interested in playing Crusade. I think it would be fun if, let's say, you and this would take a lot of work. And again, it's blue thinking, but imagine if I took my Dark Angels and you took your Votan and we plugged those into the system, and then it say, hey, this is the battle, this is the narrative, this is what you have to do. You play that game and then you input the win into a computer or whatever, and then it plays a video of, like, hey, but like the next challenge is, or the next thing is this. That way then you're kind of, it's drawing you back in
Yeah.
consistently to kind of play. But again, that's another great idea for Warhammer to take and Games Workshop
Yeah,
to take
no.
along with.
We
But
gotta be quiet. We can't give them all our ideas away. Um, no, I agree. I mean, that would be more of a story-driven, narrative-heavy, which is the point of Crusade. So,
Mm,
I'm trying to think how they would curate all of those videos and replay them back. It'd almost be like a choose your own adventure, what we had talked about before. I don't know if that's feasible from a budget standpoint and production. That would
no.
be difficult for them. I think I would rather see them do something either with cards, sell a Crusade pack, hey, ever have you been interested in Crusade but didn't want to do the paperwork? Well, here are these cards, and you can just read these cards out, and it'll move the needle forward. Or release some put the Crusade content in the app, and to
Mm,
me that would be easier and a little well, I guess simpler to track, because if they would just ask you questions. One of the things that I remember, I can't remember what app it was that man, I cannot remember. It would like track your wins and losses, and it
mm,
would ask you what mission it is and show you the map on there. I just liked that it would guide me and lead me through making those decisions versus me trying to remember and reference back to the book and write things down. And maybe that's just the lazy man's approach, but I think if they did something like that and added it to Warhammer Plus, that
mm,
would be another incentive, because Steve and I have talked about this before. Warhammer Plus is just not the same value that it used to be,
mm.
and I don't know what they're going to do with it in the next couple of years, but
Yeah.
all the content is dried up. The apps are good, but not absolutely required. So
Mm.
I'm just curious to see where they're going to go. So I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if Crusade is not doing it for you, and none of this other stuff is. I don't know. They ought to start including some of these games. What if they included Speed Freekz in the Warhammer Plus subscription. They started making it a video game subscription to go along with Game Pass or something. That might actually be a good idea too. Like throw in a free game,
Maybe.
or on early access or something that might get you to play Speed Freekz. Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I'm happy painting. So like if I
I can tell.
Play a video game or do some painting, I'd do some painting. So
yeah, sure enough.
That's where I am.
Well, plenty more painting. I've got a ton on my pile of potential that I've got to get done for Spearhead, because we're going to be playing soon. So, Lee, keep us posted on all of your progress. I hope you win the contest at Blackthorn. Shout out to Blackthorn Game Center and in Dixon, Tennessee. So if you are in the area, definitely swing by there. They got a lot of cool stuff and a painting challenge, apparently. So, although by the time this is out, it's probably too late.
Tomorrow, when it goes live, when this goes
it's too
live,
late.
It's So.
Yeah, well, there'll be no more painting contests, I'm sure. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. And well, with that will do it for this episode of the Dad Hammer Podcast. Thanks to the Chaplain. I am David the Warboss, and until next time, remember that your pile of potential boxes can double as terrain. Take care, and we will see you next time.